Good morning, everyone. This is T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to this week's issue of Building a Career That Matters. I see a lot of new people have joined us for today's call, so let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm the founder of the Institute for Productive Tension. We've been doing this for over 32 years, and for years and years now, we've offered this series of business building workshops for people that are members of our greater community, so people that are speakers, trainers, coaches, and consultants, or some other variety of human development professional. We've done this kind of work with lots of corporations as well, lots of sales and leadership and change management training. I've spoken in front of over 1 million people total over the course of my career, but near and dear to us is our team of independent professionals who we've certified. We have over 300 people in our community right now who have done that. And so this is part of what we do to support them and for a little bit of community outreach as well. This program is 52 weeks long. It's all based on our current study of the viability of the businesses that people in our industry are operating. We are also basing it on some of the results from our 2010 study too. Those of you who subscribe to the blog, you probably noticed that later on this week, in fact Wednesday I believe it is, I'll be doing a big presentation on the results of the current study for the Los Angeles chapter of the ICF, and they've been gracious enough to invite everyone to attend it. They're even giving you a credit for attending it if you're part of ICF. So if you'd like to know about that presentation, just go to our blog and you'll find the information about how to register for the ICF LA presentation on the results of the study. A couple of little things to make sure you know about. First of all, the home page for this program, very important that you all know where this is. If you go to our website, Institute for Productive Tension, down here in the menu item, you're going to find the ChangeWorks community, and at the bottom of the ChangeWorks community sublist, you'll find Building a Career That Matters. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for everybody to see. You really need to bookmark this page if you're going to be participating in this series. It gives you a full list of every subject that's coming up. I give you the dates we'll be talking about it. I give you the registration link for signing up for it. But when the call is over, I go back to this page and I change the registration link to the recording link. And so you can actually get to the recordings of any of the roadblocks that you happen to miss. So please make sure you know about this page so that you can know what's coming up, and you can also get to the recordings of things if you'd like to refer to them a bit later. Okay, let me slide that out of our way. You guys, for the most part, are using your computer's built-in headset and microphone. So if you do have any questions as we're working our way through this program, you're certainly welcome to ask them. If you'd like me to unmute your line so you can just share openly, I'm happy to do that too. So just keep in mind this is your call, and I want to make sure that each of you get out of it, whatever it is. It makes it well worth an hour of your day. So with that, got any questions? You're always welcome to contact us at 704-987-6500. So with that, let's get to today's program. Today's topic is roadblock number 4, misunderstanding the marketplace. And I intentionally spelled it wrong because I want you to recognize that if you don't understand the marketplace, you are likely to miss a whole lot of very valuable insights that could lead you to more of the business you're really looking for most. So let's emphasize that we're trying to get rid of the misses so we get a little bit more hits out there in the work that we're doing. The key question we're trying to answer here is who wants, needs, and will pay for me? And to help you work your way through today's program, I'm going to encourage each of you to just grab a piece of paper or open a Word document on your screen, and we're going to work our way through 7 different aspects of the marketplace. And as we go through each of these aspects, I'm going to go over several different options inside of each one of those aspects, and I'm going to ask you to choose your preferences. So among the options I give you, I just want you to say, I want my marketplace, I want my customers, I want my target base to meet the following requirements. So by the time we're done with this call, you should not only thoroughly understand the marketplace, but you should also have the list of qualifiers that you are looking for to judge whether or not an opportunity is even worth pursuing. So if you take this seriously, it's going to greatly impact your success in going out there and using your marketing time, resource, dollars, et cetera, as efficiently as you can. After you've written down your preferences, Your little homework assignment is going to be to compare your current clients to those preferences. How many of your current clients actually meet muster? And also look at the prospects you're dealing with right now. How many of them are actually meeting muster? If you find out that the majority of your clients don't meet the qualifications for the perfect client, you got work to do. And if you realize that the prospects you're going after likewise don't meet whatever those qualifiers happen to be, then maybe you need to be targeting a different group in a different way. And ultimately, this leads to you being able to evaluate your strategy. Certainly, as we work our way through these 52 weeks of training, we'll be getting that strategy better and better and better defined so that you can really go out there and build the kind of business that you want. Also, some of you guys following last week's call contact me and said, would you be answering this? Are you going to tell us the answers on this? And the answer to all of them is we will cover everything, but it does take us 52 weeks to go over it. This is the equivalent of a 2 solid week seminar you could go to. If you went to a live workshop, this is the equivalent of full days, 5 days a week for 2 solid weeks. So we got to give it time to unfold, but I'm always happy to answer your questions for you. With that, let's jump in. So the first of these aspects we're going to look at are the different scenarios that you will find out there in the marketplace. And so I've chosen 4. There may be more, but these are the 4 that I've always worked with. So here goes. The first one is that you are dealing with a situation where the individual gets to decide what it is they're going to do, whether it's take a program or hire a coach or whatever. The individual actually gets to decide that for themselves, and the individual has to pay for it themselves. Now, for most of you that are in coaching practices, this is probably your current reality. The individual decides that they want to engage your services, and the individual is going to be the one who's responsible for paying the bill. But there's another possibility, and this is that the individual gets to decide what it is that they're going to do, but the company is willing to pay for it. Now, I've experienced this in many different organizations over these 3 decades. A lot of times, companies have in their training department or in their HR department, they've come up with a catalog of ongoing educational opportunities or ongoing development opportunities that they give to their employees as a menu. And they say, okay, every employee, here's your budget. You go spend it however you want. The company's the one who's obviously paying the bill there. Or these are pre-approved and anyone can come to them that wants to, and the company is willing to pay for it. So there are lots of opportunities out there where the individual actually gets to decide what they're going to do, but the company is the one who's actually going to pay for it. I know for years and years we were listed in the course catalogs of many large companies, including lots of energy companies like Detroit Edison and banks like Bank of America, where our program had already been pre-approved and anyone who wanted to go through it could just decide to come through it. That's a great thing there as well. There's other times when the company is the one who's going to decide what you need to go through, but they expect you as the individual to pay for it. This is certainly true in the world of financial services, where the company mandates that you hold certain licenses in order to sell certain products. So they're mandating that training, but they don't pay for the training. You've got to go and get that training yourself. So there's lots of those situations out there. And then the one that I found most frequently, because I was marketing myself primarily as a corporate trainer, is the company was deciding what it is they were going to be doing, and the company that was the one who was going to be paying the bill for it. So these are the 4 general categories, and it's got nothing to do with whether you're a big practice or a small practice. You get to decide. There are plenty of opportunities out there for coaches, trainers, and consultants in each and every one of these 4 categories. That being said, inside of the marketplace that you are focusing on or wish to focus on, you may find a heavier likelihood of one of these scenarios versus the other 3. And so maybe you need to choose the scenario you prefer based on the realities of the market you're going after. Or if you're willing to say, hey, I want to choose the scenario I prefer, and then let me go and market to them. Obviously, your marketing strategy, of marketing approach, your sales approach is going to be different for each one of these 4 categories, with each one of these 4 possibilities. And unless you've got a lot of time or you have a staff, in all likelihood, you're not going to be able to do all 4 of them and do any of them particularly well. So right now, I'd like each of you to decide, of these 4 categories, which one would be the perfect situation for you. The absolute perfect situation for you. And just go ahead and write it down, that scratch piece of paper in the Word document. And by the time we're done, we're going to have you give all 7 of those. But I'm curious, there is a question and answer panel here on the GoToWebinar system. I would love it if you guys would just type to me which one you're choosing, just so I get a better feel for who's on our call today. So which would your preferred scenario be? Go ahead and make your choice, type it over to me, or at least write it down for yourself. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, let's take a look at the second aspect of the marketplace. It's important for all you to understand. Interesting is some of you guys are going, individual decides, company pays, company decides, and in either of those situations, yeah, the company's going to mandate it, there's opportunity, and maybe it's easier to get the individuals to pay than the company, but very important that you know which one you choose, these are all very interesting. Got a nice spread here. So individual decide, company pays. Company decides, either one can pay. Individual decides, individual pays. Interesting, Dinah. A lot of you are saying that the individual decides, the individual pays. Yeah, so seeing a little bit of a pattern come up, but mostly I'd say the jury is still out on which one is going to be most prevalent. So again, just make your choice and then prepare yourself to market yourself successfully based on that choice. Well, it's not just one thing, 6 more aspects to go through. Let's look at aspect number 2. Prospects themselves fall across 6 categories. And for each one of these categories, I want you to make your choice. And I think the choices are going to be pretty obvious. By the time you're done, you go like, well, I want them to do all these. But, you know, what's the reality of the situation? So prospects fall across 6 categories. The first category, they need you versus they don't need you. Now, I want to make qualification really simple for you. I've always said that a prospect is qualified if the following 3 things are true. They have to need me, they have to want me, and they have to be in the position to pay for me. They may need me, but if they don't want me, we got a problem. And they may need me and want me, but if they're not in the position to pay for me, then we've got a problem. And so for me, that's my core rules. I just care about need, want, and are in the position to pay for me. But you might want to get even tighter around that. So either they need you or they don't. Now, you might think there's no opportunity for people to offer services to people who don't need you. But there are a great deal of programs, products, and services being offered that people buy impulsively. Truth is, they really didn't need that training, but someone decided they should have it, and so it's been imposed upon them. I can't begin to tell you how frequently in my role as a corporate trainer, the powers that be have mandated specific curriculum, specific subject matter to, and imposed it upon a particular audience. And the bottom line is they really didn't need that training. They needed something completely different. But nevertheless, it's been imposed upon them. So don't think that the possibility doesn't exist. It certainly does. That said, I'd much rather work with people who need me than those who don't. The second little bullet point there is some see your value and some don't. Would you rather work for people who automatically see your value, understand what it is that you do and how it's going to impact their life? Or would you rather work with people who don't initially see your value and now you've got to convince them that you have value? So again, you know, we're talking about here, do you want to work with people who have, going back to the first bullet point, who have a fully acknowledge need for your services, or do you want to try to talk them into needing you? Do you want to work with people who see your value, see that hourly rate and are not shocked by it because they see the value they're going to get, or do you want to try to convince people that don't see your value? Do you want to work with people who truly want to work with you or who don't particularly want there? This also plays itself out in audiences. Do you want to stand in front of an audience who each member of it freely chose to be there, or do you want to stand in front of an audience who have been required to attend or whatever? So they may not want you even though they need you. Has the money versus doesn't have the money. Really, you get to pick where you put your energy. Do you want to target people who you predict have money, or would you rather go after people who don't have money and try to convince them to find it? Then you get to the next one. Even people who have money may not want to invest that money. So they have to both have it and they have to be willing to part with it. So they either have a desire to invest in themselves or invest in whatever that subject matter is for the greater benefit of their company, or even if they have the money, they're still being a little bit miserly or reluctant for whatever reason. They just don't want to invest, or maybe, getting to the next point, don't want to invest right now. So there are prospects who are willing to take action, ready, willing, and able to do it, and there are others who might meet every other requirement, but they don't follow through and take that action. Now, I'm going to predict that the obvious choices have been made by everyone. You really want people who need you, see your value, want you, has the money to pay for you, wants to invest in themselves and takes action. That's who you want. I completely get that. But I do want you to do the exercise that I said at the beginning. Think about all of your current customers and go down this list and see, do they really meet these requirements? Do you have a customer who needs you but doesn't really see your value, and so they're always trying to reduce the rate or whatever? Or are you working with people who really need you, but right now they don't want to do what needs to be done, or they aren't taking action? So if you subject each of your current clients to this little decision tree, you might see a pattern emerge that makes you a little bit unsettled. Obviously, we want to move forward looking at all 6 of these categories and saying, I'm really looking for people who meet all 6 of these requirements. So as I evaluate a particular prospect, I can say, okay, they need me and they know it. They do see my value. They do want me, but they don't have the money, they don't want to invest, and they're not taking action. If that's the reality of a particular prospect, then you've got to decide how you're going to proceed, or even if you're going to proceed. So any questions, comments about this particular one? Then let me ask you this question. How many of you right now have got clients and or prospects who do not meet all 6 of these requirements? How many of you have got clients or prospects right now who do not meet all 6 of these requirements? Let's see, we have clients that have a need but do not see value and complain about the money. Oh yeah, absolutely. So you guys go like you do, yep, we've got these clients. And so I want you to recognize this. I'm giving you guys, this is really real stuff. I think that you guys understand, even those that are new to our ChangeWorks community, this is not a preview of a bigger program. This is the big program. And so I want you to really do this work. Don't just think that this is like a radio show that you're listening at in the background. This is really valuable stuff, at least I like to think it is, that if you take a few moments to do this exercise, you're going to have your eyes much wider open, and you might find yourself using your time and energy more efficiently. All right, so again, let's see, the next misunderstanding of the marketplace is that we forget, but users of our services fall into 6 different categories. And again, maybe there's 7, I've come up with these 6. So and by users, I mean maybe they're using your training services, maybe they're using consulting services, maybe they're coaching clients. So these are just people that are using your services. So let's talk about these possibilities here as well. So I guess we'll start with legacy users. Legacy users are people who have kind of like incorporated this kind of training or personal development into the fabric of their life. They've always done it. They're always going to do it. This is just part of the fabric of their business, the fabric of their personal life. So if we're talking about companies, they might have established training mentality, a budget, a curriculum already in place. They've used it for decades. They always want this. These are legacy users. And so if you guys are fortunate enough to find a legacy user and get them to start using your programs, your products, your services instead of the one they currently have in place, great. You're the next benefactor in the chain of the legacy programs. And I say a chain because even companies that are legacy users may change the program from time to time. This is very common in large corporations. They have always done sales training for their new hires and for their more advanced people as well. But that training program itself might get changed every X number of years. So long ago, they might have been doing spin selling, and today they might be doing Master Stream. And so they'll change the program, but they're still a legacy user of your programs, products, or services. Let me see if I'm getting any questions about this. I saw my little panel click up here. Okay, great. All right, so there's also current users. Current users are obviously people who are currently using your services, but they did not use them in the past, or they've used them, well, the next one is occasionally. They've gone to and come back. So the current users, but they don't have that legacy effect yet. Maybe they'll have that legacy effect later on, but right now it hasn't been going on long enough to become part of that fabric. So currently they're using your programs, products, and services, but there was no history behind it, and there's no guarantee that they'll continue doing it in the future. But at least you have a chance to convert a current user into a legacy user. Beyond that, the next one are occasional users. Occasional users, pardon me, are people who are not using you with any kind of routine thing, but occasionally they have the need for a speaker, so they bring someone in. Or occasionally they have someone who needs to go through a little bit of coaching, and so they hire a coach for this situation, this occasion. Maybe they decide, oh, we're launching a new product. Let's do a little bit of sales training for everybody to bring them up to speed. So these are the occasional users. There is no history behind it. There isn't really a training or a coaching mentality in place. But they decided on a whim, let's try this, and then they'll abandon it, and down the road they'll come back and use some service again. These are occasional users. They use programs infrequently. So they might be able to toss you an engagement or an opportunity here or there, but don't really count them as a reliable source of predictable revenue for your business. Okay, those are occasional users. The next category we look at are prior users. So prior users are people who have either used your specific services in the past but currently are not using them, or maybe they've used services of other people in the past, but now because maybe of budget issues or management changes or whatever, they've abandoned it and they're not there. Now, obviously, if they felt there was value in these kinds of programs and products and services at one point in the past, maybe, just maybe, you could rekindle that. So, pardon me, as you look at your list of current clients, you just want to ask yourself, in addition to these current clients, do I have prior users? Or among my current clients, how many of these are legacy? How many of these, obviously they're current, but how many of those current are going to be occasional? How many are prior? So you really want to be able to put these people into categories so you can advance them up that hierarchy to that, more and more that direction of legacy users. Obviously, if I can't fill my practice with legacy users, I'd like to make sure I've got strong current users, and whatever free space I might have available, maybe I can fill in with an occasional user. But those prior users could be very, very good prospects for your business this year. In fact, I was talking with one of the licensed ChangeWorks professionals about their business model for this year. They've happened to have lost a couple of pretty significant clients, and so they're kind of going, what can I do to quickly rebuild what I've lost? And I said, you have to recognize that there are 4 buckets. Those 4 buckets we're going to put in them is you got your current users, and we want to look at that bucket to determine, is there some additional business I might be able to get out of them, so let me perpetuate what I've already got. Maybe I can expand what I've already got so they need me more frequently. Maybe if I'm coaching and I want to move them from twice a month to every week, maybe there's something I can do with that bucket 1 set of clients. The bucket 2 set of clients are people who have used you in the past but are currently not using you, and so maybe you can rekindle them. A great use of your time to go to them next. The third bucket are the group of colleagues you have who know of you, love you, know what you're doing, can say great things about you, but they personally have never used your services. Maybe you can get them to use your services now. Can you convert them? Or maybe you can get some referrals out of them and follow those. And then the fourth bucket are the people that you've never talked to before, but they meet your dream requirements. And I guess we could have fifth and sixth buckets, but honestly, I've never met a human development professional who, if they're doing a good job with bucket 1, 2, and 3, you don't have any time to really be going after buckets 4, 5, and 6. We want to put some energy into bucket 4, though, because if the clients that you currently have and the prospects you're currently working with do not represent good additions to your ideal prospect base, we got to break that pattern. And to break that pattern, we may need to put some emphasis into bucket 4. We'll be talking about that in more detail as the weeks go on, but that's a little bit about where this goes to. So prior users could be fantastic opportunities to convert. There are also new users. These are the people who are brand new to something. Maybe you were out there, doing a cold call, and you stumbled across someone, and you're the very first time they've ever done this sort of thing for themselves. Great. Let's see if we can turn them from being new users to current users, and current users, again, with an ongoing sort of element, all the way up to legacy users, and help them become part of that lifetime learner kind of community. There's also the category of never users. These are people who have never gone through a training program and have no interest in ever doing so. They've never used a coach and have no interest in ever doing so. They have never used a consultant. They have no interest in ever doing so. They don't even want to talk to you. Now, it frightens me how many people who start off their careers in the human development industry, and because they're so passionate about what they do and they see the value that it can bring, they decide to invest their time and energy into converting people who don't see the light into people who do see the light, converting never users into new users. Is that possible? Absolutely. Is that the most effective use of your time? No way. The most effective use of your time is to go after the people that are legacy users and continue to foster that relationship. Go after and build current users and help them to evolve into legacy users. Turn your occasional users into current users, prior users into active users yet again, and new users if you're trying to create a whole new pattern in your business. So again, this is about you guys thinking about your current client base and your prospects. So here's what I would like you to know, and Barney, I'll get to your question in just one second. I'd like you to think about your current customers and the prospects you're working with and say, do they represent legacy users, current users, occasional, prior, new, or never? Obviously, if they're currently clients, they don't qualify as never users, but new, prior, what are they? Where were they? Where were they? So I'd be curious. You guys give me some little feedback on that. Tell me what's going on with your category of users right now. Legacy, current, occasional, prior, new, never. Who are you going after? Where do they meet? While you guys are weighing in on that, let me read Barney's question here. Sign on a bit late. Was the fact that CEO level prospects and users are the most difficult covered previously? Well, we'll be getting to specific roles inside of an organization a bit later. I don't know that that CEO level or C-suite prospects are really the most difficult to convert. Quite honestly, the most difficult to convert are people who are down in apathy. And so last week we talked about the 5 levels of productive tension that exist out in the marketplace. Call me crazy, but I'm the founder of the Institute for Productive Tension. Sooner or later, and frequently from that point forward, I'll be making references to these levels of productive tension. And again, you're all members of the ChangeWorks community, so you can all become certified in the ChangeWorks system for free, so you don't have any excuses about understanding these principles of tension management and applying them with great benefit to the work that you're doing. So it's people that are down in apathy. Now, is it possible that the C-suite is down in apathy? Absolutely. But I've had plenty of occasions where the C-suite was all on board. I'd completely sold the CEO, the COO, the CEO, and now I'm talking about education officer. I mean, I've sold them all. And then they say, all right, well, to roll this all out, you need to talk with each of the local managers. We're going to need to get their buy-in, et cetera. And there's where I find all the apathy. So my work was far from done just because I had convinced the CEO that something was really valuable. And I'm sure you guys have worked with lots of the C-suite. You might have encountered the same thing before. So sooner or later, even if I've got executive level buy-in, if I get pushback at lower levels of management, I still have to convert them to actually have the opportunity to present to them. Obviously, the larger the organization, the more likely that's the case. So, for example, you guys know I do a great deal of work with a Fortune 10 company worldwide. Well, even though I've talked to C-suite executives, if I want to really get into some specific details about what my population is going to be for a particular program, they're going to refer me to vice presidents that could be several levels down in the organizational hierarchy. And there could be a vice president over each country, or in some of the larger countries, vice presidents over each product line. And so, just because I convinced the execs, isn't it? So I have to tell you, in my experience, I have found it actually easier to convince the executives, and mostly it might be because I'm applying these principles of tension management, so I really know how to speak their language, I know what's going on. But then you get down to those individual decision makers who can either opt in or opt out, or only half-heartedly opt in, and we got a mess to clean up there as well. So Barney, happy to talk about that in far greater detail whenever you guys would like. Okay, so with that, let's do that. Now, a lot of you guys are saying that you're focusing more on new people. I got a couple that are on current legacy, so very curious. I want you guys make sure you do this work. So log in on this. Where are your users right now? Legacy, current, occasional, prior, new, or nevers. Okay, now let's go on to the next category for discussion, and that is topics and services themselves fall across 5 categories. And I'm going to ask you guys to weigh in on this, so don't be surprised when I ask you to type me an answer on this. Okay, very interesting. So topics and services fall across 5 categories. First category, there are topics and services that are viewed as mission critical versus mission optional. It does not matter whether you as the professional think your subjects and your services are mission critical if the buying public views them as mission optional. And so mission critical subjects and services are services and subjects that the buyer believes they cannot do without, that they absolutely positively must have this kind of training or must have this level of consulting or must have this coaching in place. If they don't, their mission will fail. So we want to make sure we are always asking the question, what do our existing clients and our future prospects consider to be absolutely mission critical? Now, the other side of things, and you got to have a thick skin in order for this one to work, is that even though you may be totally passionate about a particular subject, your real decision makers may not view this as being mission critical. And by the way, this might get back to what Barney was suggesting about dealing with the C-suite. So there are a lot of programs out there that people are trying to sell to companies, but they're on subjects, things like about sensitivity, things about cross-cultural understandings, things that the company might think is really valuable, the provider might think is really, really valuable, and certain levels of management might also consider this to be a valuable topic, or HR might even consider it to be a very valuable topic. But at the C-suite, they might go, how does that generate income? How does that protect revenue? How does that enhance relationships? If it's not going to bring me more money, or if it's not going to help me hang on to more of the money we're getting, then it's not mission critical. And so when times are good, you might hear the C-suite say, okay, fine, I get it, they want it, it's not going to harm them, okay, fine, spend the money, go ahead, take them out of the field, put them through the program. But as the money gets tight, you're going to watch those mission optional subjects become more and more put aside or rejected altogether. So we talked about this last week. And we'll talk about it again as we get into more specifics about your programs, products, and services. But you need to really think about what you're offering and ask yourself, in the evaluation of your key decision makers, do they view your programs, products, and services as being mission critical or mission optional? And be brutal as you do that assessment. So you guys can weigh in on this as we work our way through this if you want to go ahead and chime in. Now, if I look at, again, another little way to look at these programs, products, and services, some of them there will be frequent demand for, others infrequent demand for. So, for example, again, I've said I'm a trainer. There is a far more frequent demand for sales training than there is for leadership training. It is just based on sheer numbers. There are a lot more people coming into an organization who need to be trained. They're coming in every single month, maybe multiple times per month. For some of the larger corporations, they could have a new initial sales training program starting multiple times per week with multiple trainers. Okay, obviously that's a frequent demand. Or when you go to something like leadership training, they might go like, well, maybe we'll do that quarterly. We'll get all the people who've been moved into leadership positions. Maybe even less frequently for the leaders, and they'll do it as more of a retreat kind of a thing. Where management training, maybe they'll do that a bit more frequently. Or maybe it's more like a seasonal sort of a thing, so it's still infrequent, but maybe they go like, we want to have a kickoff program every single year. Or maybe it's that before we promote someone up to the C-suite, we want to make sure they go through 3 months of coaching with someone, but how often are we moving them up? So when you look at your topics and services, inside of a specific client, do they have frequent demand for that work or infrequent demand for the work? And go ahead and just, again, be brutal. Just assess yourself. And we can always celebrate the most positive aspects of it, and we can do what needs to be done to help move things in the direction of the more favorable choice. Next thing. All programs, products, and services are either going to be things that are tried and true. These are things that have withstood the test of time, that have a great deal of support across the community, that this is something that is valuable yesterday, today, and for all the tomorrows yet to be. That's tried and true. And there's other things that people are going to say that's trendy or transient. So I can certainly say to you, there's been lots of extremely successful trendy and transient programs. Do you guys remember when there was a leadership program that was all about throwing a fish around? It was all based on the San Francisco fish markets. So, okay, that was trendy. People loved it. They played with it. Yay, they did that. I can remember a day when everyone was looking for ropes courses. Today, we've got ropes courses built all over the planet. And they're struggling to do that because it's kind of like the novelty wore off, or the liability insurance got to be too high, or whatever. So you just want to ask yourself, are you focusing on programs, products, and services that have truly withstood the test of time, or are you focusing on things that are trendy and transient? Now, I'm not suggesting that you can't have anything on your menu of services that would be viewed as mission optional, that have an infrequent demand, or transient. Go ahead and have those things, but consider those to be, the sprinkles that go on top of the sundae, or maybe even the little cherry on top. These are the accessories. These are the add-ons to what your mission critical, frequent demand, tried and true menu of programs, products, and services happen to be. If you build your business entirely around things that are mission optional with infrequent demand or trendy and transient, you might have a great deal of success for a certain period of time, and then you're done. And so you'll have to find another trendy and transient thing, or you'll have to change something else. So you have to do this critical analysis as it. Next one, there are things that we do that are fun to experience, and there are things that are tedious to experience. I cannot imagine what the life of an OSHA trainer is like. Can you imagine having to go into audience after audience, week after week after week, and teach them about the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's rules and guidelines? I mean, I get it. It could be very valuable. It might be mission critical. There could be frequent demand. It's tried and true, but it is tedious to experience. So unless you can find a way to make that which is tedious fun, well, you got an issue there you're going to need to be looking at. So here we go. So let's see. Yeah, okay, I'm glad. Thank you for the feedback. Marty just said that the mission critical aspect is a great insight, that his brutal honesty may not have been tough enough. Yeah, be tougher. That's the whole point. You're at the start of a new year. Every day is the start of the rest of your life. And so why not say, however I've gotten to where I am today, let me count my blessings, let me log my learnings. But as I go forward, let me make a better set of choices with my eyes wide open. And that's why this whole idea about roadblock number 4, how many people in our industry don't understand these things about the marketplace? And this isn't difficult stuff, but I wonder how many people have ever stopped for just a few moments and even thought about how the marketplace can be sliced and diced, and then make the choice accordingly. So this, hopefully you guys are seeing real value in this. Okay, so now, it does feel brutal, this is a comment from one of you, but as I'm about to create a new program, this can help you make those choices. It certainly can't hurt. So then we get to the last one. There are things that are fun to deliver, and there are things that are tedious to deliver. I was talking with one of our executive coaching people that are licensed in ChangeWorks, and they do a lot of different kinds of coaching for a particular client. Well, one of those kinds of coaching is dealing with people that have anger management issues. And obviously those can start off from a hostile place, and they can escalate to something even worse. Obviously, the person has an anger management problem. We should not be surprised if some of that anger doesn't get directed towards us at a certain point. So that might not be as fun to deliver as a team building program. It could be tedious. And so here's what I want you to do. Think about all of the programs, products, and services that you offer or wish to offer, and subject it to these 5 questions. Is it mission critical or mission optional? Is there a frequent demand or an infrequent demand? Is it tried and true or trendy and transient? Is it fun to experience or tedious? Is it fun to deliver or tedious to deliver? And as you look at all that, you can ask yourself, is this really what I want to do? Do I really want to struggle to find enough opportunities because I'm leaning too heavily towards mission optional, infrequent demand sort of stuff, and it's tedious to experience, so nobody even wants to do it? I mean, so you really want to subject all of your current offerings to these 5 little tests and just see where the chips fall. Okay, now the next one. Audiences fall across 8 categories, and I'm using the word audiences, but those of you that are coaches, you just happen to have an audience of 1. Now, you might not even want to label them as an audience. You know, give me a little bit of latitude here so that I can just use one word to describe what I'm trying to say. People fall into 8 different categories, and when you put them together, they fall into these 8 categories. So sometimes it could be an audience of 1, which gets to the first one. So audience could be large or small. Obviously, if you're doing one-on-one coaching, it's small. You might consider coaching 2 or 3 people at a time to be large within the understanding you place or the parameters you place around what you do. Obviously, if I'm a professional trainer, you give me an audience of less than 100 people, and I'm going to tell you that's a small audience. A large audience to me has thousands of people in it, and where there's hundreds, that's medium size. And so this is obviously relative to the work that you do or the work that you wish to be doing. But are you focusing on more, a smaller audience or a large audience? One is not necessarily better than the other in this particular aspect of the marketplace. You just get to make your choice. Do you prefer working with large groups or small groups? Would you rather work with audiences that are happy to be there or are forced to participate? Would you rather deal with audiences that are public versus corporate? Now, when I talk about public, I mean this is when, let's say, again, you're a trainer, and you are saying, you're casting a wide net. Hey, business community, I'm putting on this event. Any of you who wants to send people to it can send it. And so if you think about companies like Career Track, these are companies who basically put on that they have a road show. They go from city to city. They get a room. They market it aggressively for $99. Come and do whatever. And so that's public format. Corporate format, you're really going in and you're saying to the decision makers within the corporation, I want to do something just inside of your corporation. We won't let people from outside your organization come in there. That corporation could be a corporation of 1. But nevertheless, you are now dealing with more on the corporate side. It's not something that you are inviting to the public. Those that are coaches, if you're doing group coaching, do you allow people to come from multiple different companies to come to that, or do they all have to be from within the same organization? So that's what we're talking about for public versus corporate. Generic versus customized. If you are someone who prefers to put together a speech and you are going to stand up in front of different audiences and deliver that speech virtually verbatim every time you do it, so you basically show up and they press a button and you do this, or you're putting forth a training program that the curriculum is so mapped out, so structured that there is little, if any, opportunity for deviation. This is what must be taught in order for them to meet the requirements. That's more generic. Where we talk about customized, we go into a company and we say, well, what you really are in need of here is some executive coaching. In general, executive coaching is going to accomplish the following things, but we customize this in order to meet the exact needs of the individual. That would also hold out for the same way if we're talking about consulting services or training services as well. Okay, so that's generic versus customized. You go a little bit further in here, and now we're going to talk about inclusive versus exclusive. Would you rather do programs, products, and services that only a handful of selected individuals can tap in? Or would you rather say, no, I think this is a subject that everyone should be exposed to. I want to be as inclusive as I can. So let's put everyone who's got customer contact through a customer service training program. Even if it may not be their actual role, they still do it from time to time. They still need to do that. So that's more of like an inclusive sort of a mindset. So do we only provide coaching services to people who are about to advance from a management role to a leadership role? Or do we say, no, we think everyone should be going through coaching? So do you want to focus more on people with an exclusive kind of an audience or more of an inclusive audience? Next little category, do you prefer working with people that are lively and energetic and positive and upbeat, or would you rather work with people that are more serious, more restrained, conservative, thoughtful, prudent, etc.? What's the tone of the group of people you like to work with? So we have one of our MasterStream professionals, ChangeWorks professionals right now, who is working with an audience. This particular audience happens to be of a culture that is not known for being very demonstrative. Yet this presenter is jumping up and down, upbeat and energetic, enthusiastic, passionate, and wants people to resonate and feel and act those exact same ways. He's setting himself up for a heartache because that's simply not what that culture is likely to feel comfortable doing. So can he create some breakthrough, or can he move people in the direction of being a bit more expressive and involved? I'm sure he can. But if he wants to work with audiences that are lively, this might probably not be a good audience for him to cultivate. The next one, people that are interested in learning versus resistant to learning. This often happens in conjunction with the last bullet point there. Are they willing to participate or unwilling? And so we've got people who are, look at the second bullet point, they've been forced to show up. So they arrive, they are resistant to learning, and they're unwilling to participate. So they're different sorts of things. So like, for example, obviously, all of you are interested in learning, or you wouldn't be on the call. Are you willing to participate? So as I look at the people that are typing me answers and are asking me questions and things like that, obviously not everyone is doing that. So now they might be willing to participate if they were in a different physical setting, but I know like some people might simply be listening to this webinar in a place that doesn't lend itself to them being able to participate, and so I'll grant you a little wiggle room. But obviously, I would rather have people on my calls that are willing to participate than unwilling. But it's even more important that they're on the call. So I don't mind being used as the radio versus not being used at all. So please do that. Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you for that feedback, Barney. Okay, and we got one more category to take a look at. Maybe two. Sorry, yeah, two. So number 6, engagements themselves fall into 8 different categories. This is just all about the frequency of the engagements. And again, you get to pick. Sometimes people will tap into a program, product, or services once in an entire lifetime. And they'll never have the experience again. It's just a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. We talk to a lot of our professionals who are using different psychometric tools with their clients, and some of those psychometric tools are things that they will administer once and only once in the person's entire lifetime, because the belief is that psychometric tool is telling you something that is unchangeable. It is etched into this person's personality. Well, that would be a once-in-a-lifetime kind of a tool, and that could be really great. But if you want to make money off of using assessments, I might suggest to you that an assessment that can be used more frequently is likely to help you make more money than one that is used once in a lifetime. Or there might be a program that someone's going to go through once in a lifetime versus something else. An example of that, and again, you guys might not think this is part of our community, but it is. We have people who are doing their training and coaching and consulting services completely inside of a church system. They might be working with multiple faiths. They might be focused on a single faith or whatever, but this is it. And one of the subjects they might be doing is about pre-marriage training. So that course that they might want people to go through before they get married. Well, hopefully that's a once-in-a-lifetime class they're going to be going through. So get the idea of that engagement once in a lifetime. There's also once in a blue moon. So once in a blue moon things, go back to that idea that people are occasional users of something. So once in a blue moon, they're going to contact you and say, hey, I'd like to do something for my team this time, or I'd like to take them away somewhere. We had a really good year, so let's go and do some team building thing on a beach somewhere. This is a once in a blue moon kind of an opportunity. Next level frequency, once a year. Other than that, they don't need you, but they want you once a year. Now, some of our main stage speakers have established clientele that will use them once a year. And usually in the world of being a main stage speaker, frequency is a real issue because no matter how good of a job you do, if you're doing big convention speaking, association speaking engagements, things like that, you could have been the best speaker they ever had, but kind of just what's part of that kind of an engagement is that next year they're going to want somebody else. So you were great, that's all wonderful, and they might use you again some point in time. Now we're into the once in a blue moon category, but the nature of that beast is they need to have turnover and all that. So you're looking for a lot more opportunities than that. But maybe you've got someone who says, for whatever reasons, every single year at their national event, they bring me in to do a keynote talk or to do the kickoff or to do the whatever, or to MC the show or whatever it can be. If that's the case, you've got a once a year client, great. If you can get that to be something that actually happens multiple years in succession. Then we can look at the frequencies every 6 months, once a quarter, once a month, once a week, once a day. And there's other things in between that. Like those of you that are coaches, a lot of you are doing twice a month. Well, twice a month is 6 times in a quarter. So, you're changing the little number here in front, but the frequency is still there. So what's the frequency you want to target in your client work? Do you want to work with people who are only going to use you once in a lifetime? Are you happy to target people that use you once a quarter? Maybe you're doing a sales or a management skills training program, and that's how frequently they do it. Or do you want to do something that people actually have a need for you every single day? And you might think, well, who could that possibly be? There are people in our industry who build their business entirely through blogging, and every single day they make sure that that person receives something that they would find interesting. Now, usually they're not making their money by selling their coaching services, their training services, although they may do that occasionally. They're doing that because they've got books that they're recommending, and they happen to have a click-through link to Amazon that allows you to buy it, so they're making their money there. So a lot of bloggers are making money because they have a residual or an affiliate kind of a relationship with a lot of other companies. So they just get in there a little bit, so let me hook you into Amazon, let me hook you into that, but I need to get in touch with you every single day in order to kind of build that sort of a business and have it truly be effective. And effective it can absolutely be. Our last category is about decision makers themselves. So decision makers fall into 3 categories, and Barney, this is going to get back to what you were saying earlier. There are private decision makers, there are internal decision makers, there are external decision makers. So let me tell you a little bit about these. Internal decision makers, we'll start with that, because there's a lot of them. And private decision makers is you're talking to an individual, and this individual decides whether to hire you or not. And so if you are selling individuals into a public training program, or you're trying to sell coaching services to individuals, well, there's your decision maker category. But those of you that are working with organizational clients, they're internal decision makers and external. Inside of the internal decision makers, we're just asking ourselves the question, who has the authority to select, authorize, and engage your services? Certainly executive leadership. Ideally, we would love to enter a company via an executive. The problem is that most of the time the executive doesn't have the level of tension about the subject matter that those levels of leadership or management underneath them would have. So what we want to do is make sure that we are targeting the executive leadership, because if they want it, they have a tendency to get whatever they want. But just because the executive might not be ready to jump on board does not mean there aren't people further down the organizational hierarchy that do have enough tension to move forward. Very frequently, and we'll talk about this in detail for those that are going through the MasterStream Essential Sales Training Program next month. In that, I'm going to say to you that as you are looking at each of the people inside of an organization who can in any way influence the decision, they each have an inherent level of tension around this. And I'm going to teach you how to draw a tension map of an opportunity. So who are all the players and what level of tension do they have? it is very possible that the C-suite is going to be down in apathy about moving forward. But that frontline manager is up in stress. They desperately need it. They want it. They have to have it. Now, do they have the authority to immediately engage your services? Sometimes the answer is yes. And if they do, you didn't need to call any higher and you got to an opportunity. You can now build up the organization from that. Is that the ideal situation? No, and I didn't say that. But there is still an opportunity and you'd want to do that. Maybe that person could just influence their next level of management up, and that level of management has the authority to engage your services. I'll give you a quick example of this one. Long ago, I began working with what at the time was called IDS Financial Services. Now they've evolved to be American Express Financial Advisors. And the way they had the company divided up, there was certainly all the C-suite people you could ever want to talk to. But they had divided the organization into 175 division offices. Each of those division offices was headed by a division executive. Their title was actually in the management levels. They weren't even at the vice president level. Nevertheless, they were the top dog in that particular division, and they had full authority to spend their budget for training and development any way they chose. Yes, further up the organization could be encouraging things very aggressively to spread out down the organization, but each one of those 175 division directors, managers, had the authority to do so. So I thought, heck, I could be trying for years to get up to that C-suite. In the meantime, I can get in to these division vice presidents, and they all are the division managers, and they all know each other, and they all have a regional vice president above them. And what I was able to do inside of IDS without ever meeting anyone, the executive suite, was I was able to get over half of all of those divisions to be my clients. And this ended up being, they were my first $1 million client. And so it's really a great opportunity. So inside those internal decision makers, there's lots of levels. At the top, yeah, we want those executives. But can I get to the managers who have the authority to recommend it, but not necessarily enough authority to engage the budget without upstairs approval? They certainly, though, might have more productive tension around the issue than the executive does. There's also committees, and I'm not happy. You can see the frown on my face right now. But sometimes companies say, all right, let's put together a group of people who are going to plan this event, and then we'll let them decide what's going to do. If I'm not part of that committee, when the committee wants to look at it, I can be force-fed to them from the executives and still be rejected. There's also administrative staff, ambassadors, training departments. There's all kinds of other opportunities for internal decision makers and influencers that are there. And depending on your program, product, and service, and even more so, depending on your level of confidence, I might suggest that you begin at a different level than the executive. So, and here, let me put this to you. I think a lot of times people are trying to sell their services initially too high in the organization. So we want you to pay attention to where the tension is and build from there. Otherwise, you really have to be good. You got to be confident about talking to an executive, and in really a very few number of minutes, you've got to be able to create new thoughts in them that stimulate them to have enough tension to want to explore whatever it is that you're talking about. So I think that you want to also factor in how comfortable are you doing the sales work that needs to be done. And then let's see if we can help you find a place inside of those internal decision maker ranks that you could be comfortable starting with, and then we'll help you with your approach and with your confidence as you work your way up to those higher and higher and higher level decision makers. So those are the internal decision makers, quite a few of them indeed. And last, there are also external decision makers, and depending on which of the 4 core disciplines you've adopted, speaker, trainer, coach, consultant, you might be going after different ones. If you're a speaker, for example, and you really want to be getting the big paying gigs, well, you're going to need to align yourself with some speakers bureaus, and the more prominent the speaker bureau, the even better. And so there are agencies, there are bureaus that you'd want to connect yourself with. Those of you that are independent consultants, you may find that the best way for you to find business is to become a team member of some external consulting firm. And now that external consulting firm is the one that you really are turning into your decision maker to use your services and plug you in. Also inside of the external decision makers, you might find meeting planners. The meeting planners themselves are just representing opportunities, but they could hire you as a trainer. They could bring you in. They might be handling booth space and all that sort of a thing. And certainly association officers, even at the local level, can begin to open up opportunities for you. And so I think, depending on what the programs, products, and services are that you're offering, you do want to make sure that you are going after the appropriate level of decision maker and really understand what's the range of people you might actually talk to inside of each of these categories of decision makers. Okay, so with that, you want to ask yourself, which do you prefer? And then you should be able to put together the answers for all 7 questions, and you'll see the overall profile of what it is that you're looking for. And so as my little final minute here, let me just go back and say this. So by the end of it, you might want to say, I'm looking for a scenario where the company decides and the company pays, where they need me, see my value, want me, have the money, want to invest, and can take action now, where they are strong current users and sometimes legacy users. I want to be focused on mission-critical topics that have got a frequent demand, that are fun to experience and fun to deliver. I want my audiences to be large. Thank you. Happy to be there. I want them to be corporate. I like doing customized work that is inclusive. I like a lively audience that's interested in learning and willing to participate. I want my engagements to be things that are happening not less frequently than once a quarter. So I want things that there's an ongoing need for my services inside of those clients, although I'm not going to say no to the occasional once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. I just don't want to build my business around engagements that are once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-blue-moon. And frankly, I'd rather work with internal decision makers, and I'm perfectly comfortable talking to upper-level managers all the way up to the C-suite. So that's the profile that I'm looking for inside of the marketplace. Your homework is to find out what is the profile that you are looking for in the marketplace. And then again, you want to subject that to your, compare your current client base to those preferences, see who meets and who doesn't meet muster, and then also look at the prospects you're currently pursuing and ask yourself, how many of my preferences are being met by this prospect I'm going after? If it doesn't meet enough of them, you might go like, maybe I should be prospecting somebody else, in which case you'll be reevaluating your strategy. Next week, to finish up, we're going to be talking about roadblock number 5, building someone else's business. There are many professionals who are out there that seem busy enough, but all the business they're getting is coming to them through the sales and marketing efforts of other people. And those people have a tendency to keep the lion's share of the revenue. And so you're becoming someone who is really very dependent on the kindness of strangers. So we want you to spend a moment asking yourself, am I building my own business? Am I building someone else's business? If I'm in between, what direction am I leaning? And then we're going to talk about something very special. And there are many of you that may currently be locked in to these relationships with larger scale providers, and you don't know how to get out of it. So we'll talk about how to plan your escape out from under the control or the authority of other people who might be doing it. If you don't have this problem right now, still, we want you to be on that call so that you've got your eyes wide open. You can see these opportunities for what they are, so you don't get sucked in to putting a lot of time and energy into something that really isn't bringing you what it should be bringing you. So with that, are there any final questions, comments, thoughts to share? All right then, I thank you all very much for participating in Building a Career That Matters. Please make sure that you subscribe to the blog so you see all the events that we've got coming up. Lots of good things happening. And one, just to remind you, tomorrow we're doing that tutorial call on how to use the online ChangeWorks system for your personal change grid. As members of the change grid community, and you all are, you have open access to that for free for the rest of your life. So it might be worth you spending a half hour with us on that call tomorrow to learn how the personal ChangeWorks system actually works. So with that, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate the feedback. Talk to you again next week. Bye-bye, everyone.